alien implants. Abductions that lead to the beings implanting something inside of you. Proof that we may not be alone. Let's dive into an excerpt from Luis Elizondo's new book. It's about to come out, called Imminent. Comes out August 20th. Inside the Pentagon's Hunt for UFOs. I've made a few videos on it. I'll put links in the description if you want to check out more excerpts from the book to sort of tease you, right? Please go pre-order the book. But we're about to get into something quite interesting, and it looks like Luis Elizondo potentially might have seen evidence of alien implants, right? So let's dive in. All right. Where do we begin? Okay, so I've got a few different little bits like this that we're going to piece together, okay? And then I've got a video to show y'all, so stick around. All right, let's do this. Okay, so the good doctor now took me further into his confidence. ... Wider than a joint of one of your fingers. Looked more like a microchip encapsulated by slimy, semi-translucent casing of tissue. It looked very similar to mother of pearl. Under a microscope, it was still moving somehow. The doctor hypothesized that it had its own metabolism. OSAP ATIP also had obtained photographs of these. Okay, so let's just go back a little bit. So, wider than a joint of one of your fingers. That's pretty big, right? Look more like a microchip encapsulated by semi-translucent, right, casing. That's interesting. So more on that here in just a minute. All right, so then it says OSAP ATIP also had obtained photographs of these. Remember, Luis Elizondo was the head of ATIP, right? Had also obtained photographs of these alleged alien implants found in humans. What? From what I read, often living tissue grew around the implants. More on that as well. Allegedly, they were sent to various medical institutions such as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, the Food and Drug Administration, the National Institutes of Health, and a U.S. Army research facility at, hang on, I've got the rest of that, Fort Detrick in Maryland, where some of the most deadly viruses are under lock and key and the watchful eye of armed guards. So let's go back to this other one. Ironically, the samples had been moved around so much that their original chain of custody might have been lost, with samples sitting in a refrigerator somewhere and no one having a clue what they were. Imagine there's some alien implant sitting around somewhere and nobody knows what the heck is going on, what these things are. They wouldn't even know. That's interesting, right? So, okay. Right here, this is an interesting part of it. Brightly colored hairs are filaments similar to Morgellon fibers. All right, now it doesn't get into this in this video, right? I'm not going to get into this part, but this is kind of another little teaser. And I made a video on this. Hang on. Right here. Okay, it's described as angel hair, and I think that's what he's talking about. So I'll put a link in the description. Go check it out. They also call them like spider webs, you know, that these UFOs leave behind. And look at that. It's just like drenched, right, on the ground. I think that's what he's talking about there. But regardless, it's just kind of one part of the rest of this other quote, right? So let's get back to the alien implants. That's just a little side adventure. If you want to dive in further to that. Look, there's going to be so much more coming out of this book, y'all. There's going to be so much stuff in this book to go over. So we're only 15 days out, y'all. When researchers scrape away the human tissue, they find objects that resemble a technical device in size and shape, but without any circuitry whatsoever. That's interesting, right? The other one had circuitry, right? Where was it? Right here. A microchip. Looked more like a microchip. So see, that's interesting. Okay, resembled a technical device in size and shape. I don't know. He says, I once handled one of these implants myself. So this is Luis Elizondo speaking. Provided to me by a hospital in the Department of Veterans Affairs, where it had been removed from a U.S. military service member who had encountered a UAP. Right? So Luis Elizondo handled one of these alleged alien implants himself, okay? And had been removed from an U.S. service military member, right, who had this encounter with the UAP, walked away with an implant, turned it over, and a hospital in the VA had it, and Luis Elizondo got to, you know, look at it, handle it. So that's wider, right here. The material no longer or wider than a joint of one of your fingers. Look more like a microchip encapsulated by semi-translucent. So that's where that goes, right? That's interesting. It was hard for me to kind of put all this together. Oh, guys can't read that. It's hard for me to kind of put all this together. But there it is, right? That's just crazy that he handled one of these, right? Now, this is another part. Pardon me, it's a little blurry, but the body didn't know the object was there in the first place. Maybe the implant encouraged the growth of human tissue around itself to keep the body from rejecting it. Post-extraction, some implants moved around the Petri dish. So, right, they covered that before. Right? That under a microscope, it was still moving somehow. So, and that the capsule potentially encourages the human tissue to grow around it so that the body wants to keep it inside, right? That's interesting. What is this implant doing is the bigger question, right? Yes, how did it get there? But what is it doing? What's its purpose? Is it tracking? Is it collecting data? Is it, I don't know what, right? Some sort of explosive put into them that can be set off at any time to control them. Who knows, right? I find that fascinating, right? So, look, links in the description to check out the book, okay? Pre-order the book. It's coming out. I don't have links to any of this, so you're going to have to just watch this video to get this. All right, let's watch a video. This is an example of someone who had an implant themselves. This is from quite a while ago, about 14 years ago. But this will give you an idea that lots of people, not just military service members, but private citizens have had encounters with UAP, been abducted, and then come out of this with some sort of implant themselves. Is there anybody watching that has had an implant or something removed from them that they believe came from an abduction? Please tell me in the comments. I would love to know. All right, let's go here.
It's one thing to say you've seen something that's unknown. It's another to say, I've been abducted.
Well, you would have the evidence, the physical evidence that's occurred to him. The marks on his legs, the marks on his body, the implants.
That's right, implants. This is just some of the evidence Chuck is talking about. See the dot in that X-ray? Stan claims it was an implant doctors found after a so-called abduction. When ABC News asked for an independent medical assessment of the implant, Stan says it suddenly disappeared. There's also these photos of marks on Stan's body, which he says were the result of alien testing.
And they're usually in triangles, perfect triangles. You can measure them, and they're like an inch by an inch by an inch by inch.
One could argue, Stan, that these are self-inflicted.
Yeah, they could argue that. I found some on my back, didn't even know I had them. Now, how can I reach my back? You know? There's always an argument for everything. You know, just because somebody can fake something doesn't necessarily mean it's faked.
Which brings us to the physical evidence.
But it doesn't mean it's not.
Stan says he found these photos on his camera after it went missing for a couple of days. Stan actually believes this is the face of an alien.
These are...
Okay. So this guy is saying that this alien stole his camera and took some selfies and then gave him the camera back. Now, mind you, this is 14 years ago. This isn't, they did have cell phone cameras, but not like they have right now. Not even close. So this would have had to have been another kind of camera, right? The little portable ones that people used to carry. Let's get back to this. But, I mean, that does look like some sort of gray. You know, it does.
Images that were captured on a still camera.
I don't know how they got there, but they were there when we downloaded pictures off our camera.
And what do you make of these?
To me, they look real. I mean, there's so much detail in them. I don't know how they got on my camera, but they look like ETs to me. I mean, what do they look like to you?
You know, I'm a skeptic, Stan, so I think it looks like, you know, I think it looks like, you know, Halloween mask.
Okay. Maybe you're right. But do Halloween masks have that kind of detail?
Well, this looks like it could be shadows.
Could be.
Skeptics argue Stan and others like him are just seeing what they want to see.
How do you know that Stan isn't putting on a great big hoax?
Well, that's the investigative part. You know, I've been to his house. I've talked to eyewitnesses who were there that saw things. I've seen some of his physical evidence, and that's where you start.
Hey, I can't say I disagree with that, right? Got to follow the evidence. But there's an example of someone who had an alien implant and apparently some selfie pictures from an alien. But regardless, in Luis Elizondo's book, he will go into more detail about how he once handled an alleged alien implant from a U.S. service military member who encountered a UFO, right? And just what's the story behind that, right? And all the other implants, how many do they have? Right. They also talked about the chain of custody of some of this has just been passed around and lost. And that's concerning. Right. These are some of the nuts and bolts things that need to be addressed, I think, even potentially before disclosure. Right. Getting some of these systems in place for reporting and documenting and storing, right, some of this stuff. Now, I would imagine that at the end of the day, if we are to believe the whole story, that's the main story that's out there by Luis Elizondo and company, is these implants don't really matter because we have craft and bodies. So at the end of the day, you know, who cares? Let's get them to make us some more. Right? Apparently we have living ones that work with us in labs out near Area 51, or at least we did decades ago, right? That's according to whistleblower Jason Sands, right? So I don't know, but the alien implants is interesting, right? So we've got a lot of different stuff that's going to be coming out in this book. I mean, what hasn't been revealed? My goodness, who knows? This is very interesting. So again, I'll put links in the description to other topics that are coming out in Luis Elizondo's book, all the videos that I've made basically covering it, so you can check out other things that he's talked about. But this is, you know, quite interesting. And look, to be fair, it would be terrifying. If you did have some sort of experience and you wake up with something in your body, foreign object, I get it. Like, that would be terrifying. What would be interesting is they kind of say all the implants are kind of alike, but how many do they have and what are actually the differences between them, if any? Because if they are kind of the same, that would be kind of impossible, right? That would be interesting. How are people hoaxing and faking all with the same stuff? I don't know. Anyway, just throwing the questions out there. All right, guys. We'll see you on tomorrow's video. Remember, every day is a gift, y'all. Links in the description. Peace.